Welcome to Awaken Life Radio, a podcast about being a spiritual being having a human experience in a world gone mad. Each week, we discuss how you can heal yourself, cultivate your intuitive superpowers, and be a sacred vessel for planetary healing. I am your host, Narayani Gaia. Hey, friends. Welcome to another episode of Awaken Life Radio. I am your hostess, Narayani Gaia, and I'm here with a very special guest, my new favorite yoga teacher, I must say, Mr. Joe Taft. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Narayani. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining me. We are recording this across town from each other, probably just a couple of miles away in Asheville. And several months ago, I realized that I really wanted to up my yoga practice. So I started taking classes at Asheville Yoga Center, and I met some amazing teachers, and you are one of them. And I just find that your classes are like these mini ceremonies and really take me in this full circle experience. And I think it was just the first class I took with you. I was like, can I interview you? Because I wanted to share you with the listeners of Awaken Life Radio, because I thought you were good. And specifically, I experienced that you were really embodying what you were teaching at the time in the classes. And that is one of the main focuses of Awaken Life Radio and of Awaken Life community, that we are working to not just get information, but apply it. And so when you told me that you had some connection with, I think it's White Tantric lineage, right? You have a connection with White Tantric lineage?
I've studied
Tantric.
on and off for about 18 years, like non-dual Shiva Tantra. Yeah.
Yeah. So non-dual Shiva Tantra, for those who don't know, is very traditional Shivite lineage teachings from the Himalayas, and that are rooted in unification of self with the divine. And then, like, a lot of people think Tantra is just like the red, sexy Tantra, but White Tantra is another term for personal connection with the divine, just to name that. So I want to jump right in with you, Joe, on this topic that I find really fascinating, and our listeners seem to find fascinating, which has to do with really applying spiritual knowledge and information. And so you are a teacher who's taught for 20 years, right? 20 years, 20 plus
Yes.
years. And you've also trained teachers, and you're presently in this epic deep dive to become an official yoga therapist with some of the top trainers, I'd say, probably in the West. And you've seen a lot. I see your classes. People are different sizes and shapes and ages. I see how you interact with people. You seem to be able to connect with all different kinds of people. And so I feel like you have the experience to answer this question, which is also rooted in kind of white privilege Asheville. I just need to name that. But from the people that you serve, what do you find is the thing that people are really struggling with spiritually on their journey? Because I think there's been so much disassociation of spirituality because of religion, and so much piecemealing spirituality from the internet, that we don't have often people that are as rooted in spiritual living and teaching to get guidance from, unless we're following like a certain religious practice. But one of the things I appreciate you is you seem very open to the universality of not universe, not university, but of the collective wisdom that yoga has helped awaken. I know I can relate with that with you. So will you share with our listeners about what you feel like people are really struggling with on a spiritual level at this time?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say that I am really grateful that so many different types of people come to my class. And in general, I'm 49, and in general, the means of the age is actually a little older than me. which I find really interesting. And because it is, I believe the cause of that is because it is a heart-based, or what you might even call like a spiritual-based practice. And older people tend to be, I'm generalizing, but older people tend to be like drawn to that a little bit more.
So interesting.
And,
yeah.
yeah. So we get, closer to the end of our life, I think we search for, the essence of things more, or the of things, so to speak. And so what is it that, so to answer your question,
yes,
which is I'm going to repeat your question just to make sure I'm on target, is that why is it that people are drawn, or what is the thing in people's lives that is not their spiritual practice, why they are not doing the spiritual practice, in a sense? Is that kind of your...
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like we don't know what we don't know. And that's when sometimes teachers and mentors, because, I mentor people. I have a lot of teachers, people that I lean on for guidance and support. I have friends that I consider like teachers as well, because we can always help each other through transformation. But I think there's a lot that I'm asking from the perspective, not in the way that marketing looks at what people's problems are, because marketing assumes that people know what their problem is, but from the perspective of what you see that people struggle with spiritually, like what are spiritual struggles, right? So if it was Christianity, they'd be like, because not everybody believes Jesus. Be like, what does that even mean? Spiritually, is it identity issues? Like we started talking about this earlier. What is it that you feel like people are disconnected from? I guess we can acknowledge that a spiritual struggle is one that keeps you in the illusion that you're not connected to all infinite love and all that is. So what would be what's something that you see that if people had and understood, they'd be able to embody a deep connection and purpose and peace?
So I believe in general that people aren't as present in their life as we could be. We tend to be on all the autopilot. There's this thing called the economy, and the economy is kind of driving us. It's this huge energy thing. The economy is driving us into the future because it says you'll have something that you need. It's right in front of you. You have to kind of move and get it. And this, as you know, is completely the opposite of a yoga experience or a spiritual experience. So the answer to your question is presence. It's to be more present in the moment. And you've probably heard this before. Like, I mean, as you're hearing me say that, like some of you are like, yeah, like I've heard that one before. But I really do think that is, to say it in a really black and white way, that is the answer. But to break that answer down a little bit in a way that you could like chew on it a little bit, because we have to have it in a way that we can chew on it. One time I was at a gathering here where I live, and there was a person that I ended up talking to, and I go, oh yeah, you're into this. It was like some movement, and they go, yeah. I go, well, what's it about? He goes, well, it's about consciousness. And I go, oh, that's cool. Tell me about it. And he said, just consciousness. It's like, okay, that's great. Well, like, tell me more. He's like, if I say any more, I'll ruin it. And in a sense, he's right. The first verse of the Tao Te Ching says, if you talk about it, it's not it. So in a sense, this person was right, but that's what we're doing. Like, we're having a conversation, and we've learned great conversations. So we're having a conversation about basically being more present, because you have to see, presence for some people is the practice. Other people, presence is a prerequisite for the practice. So it always involves presence. For example, people say, they go, well, I don't really believe in presence, I trust God or whatever. Well, you have to be present to experience true God. If you're not present as a kind of a intensely present as a prerequisite to experience the highest or the universal, then that's mind cultivated material. And then you're worshiping your own mind, or you're worshiping ideas.
Right.
Presence is either the end goal, or it is a prerequisite to whatever you're calling, the higher universal or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because in the work that I've been doing the last many years, which came out of my own awakening integration journey, presence is way before trust, because and many things are before. Trust is the 12th energetic that is easy to embody after 11 other things are embodied. Presence is like the 5th one. But the reason is because there's work to do before you let go. It's not like, oh, just God will just take care of everything. Oh, I'm sleeping on someone's couch and I can't pay rent and I don't get along with anyone and I don't know where I'm living tonight, but God's taking care of me. It's like, no, dude, I'm taking care of you, or whoever's couch you're on is taking care of you. So, so it's, to me, I see that as something that is a choice. Presence is a choice. And trust is something that is healthy to behold when you've made the choices. There's this really, really amazing couple. Oh gosh, I'll have to look up and share about them. I forgot their names. They live in Colorado. I met them a long time ago, and they teach something called the trust frequency and getting in the frequency of trust. And in my experience, presence is one of the stepping stones. Now that's different than like grace or like the divine, the Holy Spirit, like that comes to you or awakens from within you, but it's close. And the reason we talk about it is so that people will get it, because we do need our minds in the journey. The spiritual journey, in my experience, if it is not integrated with the mind, emotional, body, physical energies, it remains conceptual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in your experience, what keeps people from being present? And is presence the same as being present?
Yes, being present, for example, like in your yoga practice, if you're into yoga like myself, whether it's meditation or, some kind of subtle movement or breath work, then yes, presence is an in the body experience. And that's my area of expertise. I teach people to be in the body, present in the body. And then there's other people that have experience around presence, like presence with another person. And I believe that if you practice present being in the body, then you're going to be present with other people.
Amen.
Yeah, and there can be this thing like, oh, I'm present with my pain, which is quite important, but you get so drawn in to being present in the body that you start like not paying attention to the world outside of you, which, and like you mentioned earlier, like non-dual Shaiva, whatever traditions, so many of these traditions are in the world traditions, and that's not what I teach. I teach to be in the body and be present in the body and in the breath, but to like be in the world more fully. So as a side effect, your to-do list could also be your spiritual practice, but being embodied in that process. So I believe presence in the body is a foundation for all other presence in a sense.
Do you find that that pain keeps people from being in presence?
Yes, pain and trauma that you've had in the past, that is definitely keeps you from being present. Because what if you get present, especially in the body, and you have like pain in there? Well, your only solution is to deal with it. If you want to stay present in at least that part of the body, you have to deal with it. And
that's right.
Because in the yoga tradition, we don't necessarily believe that we don't believe in taking care of your pain by kind of going back and unraveling it. We even would go so far to say that doesn't work. We believe that being present in the moment is the solution, but will that pain come from the past and you have to deal with it in the present? Absolutely. So there's no avoiding, but yeah, being present is the solution in my opinion, in my experience.
Well, three things. One is, in my experience, people cannot be they can be more fully present when they've done work to clear out the lower chakra energies. So that's why in Awakened Life School, we always work with grounding, feeling, love, and clearing energy before presence. And really make sure people are clearing their energy, dismantling the stories of codependency, why they have addiction, things like that, and get to those roots and feel through them and awaken the divine heart and practice cultivating that love consciousness, infinite love, before they can really actually awaken the third eye and or begin to integrate awaken third eye, which I find is also crucial for presence. And so what you're saying is interesting, and it's a reminder because I've done so much weaving of Eastern and Western teachings and practices that it's a good reminder. It reminds me of the sutra. What's it called? I'm gonna mess it up. Pradapakshabhavana. Someone Pradapakshabhavana, where turning negative thoughts into positive thoughts. Yeah, it's in the Yoga Sutras. And I was taught that. And the other thing that comes up is teaching from Dr. Vasant Lad, and how Ayurveda helps us so much to weave, it's the right hand to the left hand path in yoga, sister science of yoga, to understand the nature of the body and the constitution and prakriti and vikruti, and understand those things, and how Dr. Lad said the root cause of all disease is misidentification of self.
Excellent.
Right. Yeah. Right. So like if you don't know who you are, it's just like all such a cosmic joke. So it's so backwards then, like being driven by an economy and consuming things that make, quote unquote, make us happy, right? If you don't know who you are, you can't get to the root of your disease. Can you share in your experience how you've seen people awaken their nature to overcome different levels of suffering, and how that's helped them on their path, or even for yourself? This is a good time we can even get into. I'd love to hear from your own experience on the spiritual journey. How you've been able to, because I know you're a deep spiritual bro, and I know you work on that level, even though you're approachable and you're, a grounded guy. But I've experienced in your class some profound spiritual teachings and embodying them. So can you share a little about your journey of how your spiritual energy has helped you, and how you've woven that to maybe change your life or create new results?
I think the answer to that is what I have done for myself is also what I've done for, what I do for, you could even say work. It's not my favorite word for it, but
service, dharma.
Yeah. But I do have an income from it. So at some level it's service and work combined, or but
that's okay.
Totally. That's what I'm into
2022.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. Yeah. And so for me is taking experiences that I have or have studied, or I've had these experiences that are what, some people might call spiritual experiences, or big picture, universal, or whatever, and bringing them down into everyday ideas. Something somebody could chew on, for example, mentally if they wanted to, or to have an inner body experience.
Like what?
Due to it. For example, like, in regards to presence, which we're talking about, it's the difference between like routine and ritual. So routine would be something that you do as a means to an end. You might like it, you might dislike it. It doesn't really matter, but you go through your day and you get this stuff done. You get this routine done. But instead of doing it as a routine, doing it as more of a ritual. So doing it with a really high level of presence and appreciation, and kind of pouring yourself into it, almost as if this action that you were doing, this activity you were doing, was like more important than you. And then that turns it into something that gives back more. So I'll give you an example, because examples tend to be helpful. So the example that I've been using as of late is, if I wake up in the morning, a lot of times I wake up in the morning, I put my feet on the floor and I pull my curtains open, because it's nice to have the light come in. And that works. But if I get up and I go to the curtain and I say a little bit of a, I don't know, you could call it a gratitude or a prayer, or, like I'm really fond of the phrase Om Namah Shivaya. And you say a little something, then you open the curtains, and then you let the sunlight come in and like touch you, like bless you in a sense, and you're completely there for the experience. Then that's what you might call a ritual. And so, so it's about turning everyday stuff into something very special, or you could even say the word sacred.
Sacred, yeah.
Yeah.
Please say the word sacred.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what this audience is like, but I think special is also a really good word, and sacred is, man, a really good word as well.
And I feel like we have a lot of confusion around what's sacred, because of religion has kind of fucked up a lot of people. Pardon my New York accent. It's confused people and left a lot of people yearning for communion. Now, maybe in yoga class, people that do a lot of practice year after year after year, they start to experience bliss. You start to experience health. You start to experience freedom from pain. You start to experience a sense of accomplishment, community, like all these wonderful things come from deep practice. And what I'd like to do from this podcast is really inspire people maybe who haven't done yoga. You don't have to do yoga. You can walk, and it can be yoga with presence.
Absolutely.
Right? You can apparently open the shades in the morning with presence.
This idea, if you will, or this initial question that you said, is like, why are people disconnected? Well, in a conversation like this, I want to leave people with like a flavor. Like I want them to leave, and I want something to, like, for lack of a better word, haunt them, haunt in a positive sense of the word. Stay with them, and I think the subject matter of yoga is like so huge. Like to go, hey, well, like we started off, hey, well, let's the solution is to be more present, but if you think about the things that you do in your life as routine versus ritual, then, and you play with this for like a few days, or let's say you commit to like a week of this awareness around routine versus ritual, then that is that, a year from now, you could be sitting still or about to fall asleep, and you could go, routine versus ritual could come back. Because like I've already said it so many times, and this is kind of what I do for a living. Like I say things over and over, and I ask people to have a body experience of it, and because and I really do want people to bring themselves to their activity, because the activity is not what's sacred; it's the way you bring yourself to it, which is sacred.
Right.
So
beautiful.
Yeah, and there's stories about it. There's like there's even stories where the once upon a time, there's myth stories about it, where the sages, they like go into the forest, into the sacred forest, and they live in the forest, and they do their ritual over and over. But they do their ritual so much they start forgetting about the sacredness. They lose the sacredness of it because they just do it over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, Lord Shiva recognizes this, and it hurts in a sense. And so Lord Shiva goes to Lord Vishnu and says, "Hey, let's stir things up a little bit." And so what they do is they dress they take shape, I should say, not only dress, but they take shape as these very interesting characters. Shiva dresses or takes the form of like a beggar, but think like really sexy beggar. If you've ever thought about, if you've ever seen like maybe a guy who surfs a lot and doesn't really take care of himself and has like tons of sun and he's been surfing all day and he comes up out of the water, like that kind of sexy. And then, and then Vishnu actually takes the shape of like a woman, but a very voluptuous woman, and very stunning and appealing. And so then they kind of enter the sacred forest. And as they enter the community of these sages, then when they enter the community, some of the people are drawn to more the feminine shape and the feminine energy of Vishnu, and then some are drawn towards Shiva. And as they spend time there, they start to realize that these two kind of mischievous characters are like disturbing things. Have you ever had anybody in your life that's like disturbs your practice a little bit? Yes. And they eventually they even want them to leave. They're like, "Hey, you're disturbing our."
We call those pattern interrupters.
Yeah,
if it's positive, yeah.
Yeah. So but they don't like it. The sages, they don't like it. Right. And they want them out of there. They want to kind of stay with their routine.
Right. Like Shiva and Vishnu know that they're pattern interrupting, but the other people are like, "You're just annoying."
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So they try to get them out, and they won't leave, and they kind of like settle in. And so then eventually they kind of tell them to leave, and they go, "Nah, we're not leaving." And so the sages they build this fire, and their power starts to return because they want them out of there so much. And as they build this ritualistic fire, they start cultivating almost like a sense of curse. And they take the curse and they throw the curse. They cultivate these things in the fire. One of the things they cultivate is like a snake. And they take this snake and they throw it at Shiva. And as the snake comes, Shiva tames the snake with his gaze and then takes the snake, wraps the snake around his waist. And then they cultivate this tiger, and this tiger comes up out of the fire, and they curse the tiger at Lord Shiva, and Shiva takes, and as it comes, he takes
Vishnu.
No, but it's all kind of at both of them,
Okay.
Shiva's kind of standing in front and this is a story about the Lord of Yoga.
Okay.
Making sure you stay on your path.
Okay.
That's like the Shiva's job, in a sense, in the tradition. He's the Lord of Yoga. So he takes the pinky finger of his thumb and he skins the tiger as it comes his way, and then he wraps the cloak around him. And it's one thing after another. They throw some of the fire at him, and he catches the fire in his upper left hand. And then they take this demon, this huge demon called Apasmara. You might have heard of Apasmara. And they throw the demon at it, and as it comes, he dwarfs the demon. It's the demon of forgetfulness, and then he stands on top of the demon and starts to do this really interesting dance where his hair starts to sway, flow out to the sides, and there's fire all around him, and he's dancing, and Vishnu is part of the dance and the watching, and it turns into this, what we call Ananda Tandava, the dance of bliss. And as this dance starts to happen, all the spiritual practitioners, the sages, their eyes are opened and they start to see, wow, we've been doing really just routine instead of ritual. So that's the story that comes to mind for me when I think of routine versus ritual.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yeah. So there's a lot in there. So the things that are annoying us and seeming to get in the way could be the greatest teachers to make sure that we're paying attention. Yeah. It reminds me of something that I talked with someone on the plane yesterday, because I flew back from being with my family up New York, and I met this woman, and I was just kind of talking to her. She's like in her late 20s, seems like a free spirit from Colorado, but she was talking the whole time, like to herself, like to the side. I said, eventually she paused. I said, are you preparing for a presentation? She's like, yeah, I have to give it to her. I said, what do you do? She said, oh, I'm a financial whatever. I said, oh, that's interesting. Because I remember when I first started teaching workshops, I would just talk to myself in the air. Maybe you've done that or used to do that when you started teaching, right?
Lots. Like, right, I'm a big believer in like talking to yourself, like talking it out loud.
Yeah. Practice like naming it and preparing for a presentation. Yes. And so she shared and we talked, and she goes, well, what do you do? And it's always interesting to try to explain to people what I do. I said, well, I don't know what I said. I'm a healer, and I'm a spiritual life coach. Oh, wow. I said, well, I'm a meditation and mindfulness coach, embodiment coach. And she goes, oh, that's, what's that about? So I explained it, and she goes, well, who is it that you work with? What kind of, problems do you solve? What do you, what do you do? And I was really thinking about it, and who actually really benefits from learning how to go deep into the spiritual work that I've been taught to do, that I share how to do. And there's a certain element of being a spiritual seeker, a certain quality. And what was coming up was, it might not be the right thing for you. She's like, oh yeah, I did a meditation class in college, but I couldn't quiet my mind, which is a whole nother podcast to talk about, like the illusion that your mind has to be quiet, really, without having the focus and concentration of something, which is what is often in the way for people, or the proper initiations or whatever. But, I don't know. And I said, well, should I have this great boyfriend and my, this great job now and the money? I said, yeah, usually people who everything in their life is going great don't really come deeply seeking on the spiritual path. So, wow, right? When we have these things that are uncomfortable, they will challenge us to awaken our powers and our yearning to be with the sacred. So beautiful. Exactly what I was almost getting at yesterday, because people I didn't come onto the spiritual path with everything in my life feeling awesome. I was yearning for something beyond what I could even name. And it was only my teachers that could name it that helped me understand who I am and what we're all learning for, which is a sense of deep, authentic freedom. And these teachings were not always available the way that they are now, right? I mean, these were like mystic, like you had to prove yourself. You couldn't just pay for a yoga class and learn like that the essence of all things is love, or whatever, the different things, the practice and presence and the transmissions that come when you're teaching are very powerful, and they come from lineages. People couldn't just pay to go to a festival or pay to go to ayahuasca and do that like people can do now. You have to earn it, you have to be ready. But I also feel that the universe is brilliant, and that even if you're paying, it's an energy exchange, and that you're still seeking. So I just want to name that there's nothing wrong with paying for a class. And if you and your guides have the spiritual permission or guidance to do ceremony, exchange money, hey, do what you're doing. But there is a sense of yearning, that maybe that yearning is what it takes to be open to receive, just like the feminine masculine, the yin and the yang principles, right? Like we need to desire to receive, whether it's personal communion or, intimacy or connection with another. for that embodiment to take place.
Mm-hmm.
Will you talk a little bit about the power of integrating personal desire for like things and life, and the alchemy that comes when you're in spiritual practice? Because this, I think, is something that, again, we don't really have a lot of teachings of in our modern world that have been hidden. And I know, like, studying the chakras helped me understand a lot back in the day. And there's still a lot of confusion around people getting their needs met, or like, well, I want this, but I can't. There's a lot of duality that still lives in the collective field that I think manifests as war and conflict between each other.
Mm.
So do you have certain ways that is the answer yoga, that you help people come into congruency with themselves, or that you see could help people to come out of confusion around kind of their personal self and their spiritual path, that you think could be also maybe just an extension of what you've already shared, or a good nugget to help people to come into integrity? Because in my experience, coming into personal integrity and alignment with my higher energy, my lower, helps me feel unapologetic, confident, clear-minded, gives me permission to take care of myself. And all of these things help fill my cup to be able to love the people that are in my life from a full place. So I know it's a lot, but I know that you're capable of tracking on all these levels. So what do you think could help people to weave those parts of themselves so they can come into congruency?
So just to kind of boil that down to a simple-ish question, which would be, how do we
Thank you.
live in the world on a really basic level, but also have this really powerful spiritual practice or spiritual understanding?
Well, maybe that is part of it. Like the practice is the way to be, to know that you're spiritually connected, but also do you, and I feel like people, like, even they categorize like, oh, that person over there is so spiritual, God, whatever, I just want a burger, and so we separate.
Yes, totally. Well, I think there are specific practices for that, and I am way, way into them. For example, just
Nice.
taking two different parts of yourself and feeling them at the same time. For example, your head and your heart. Now, head energy and heart energy, oh my God, they're so different. Head energy and pelvic energy, oh my gosh, they're like so different. But to spend some time and to kind of get into the pelvic region and like feel what that's like, and then to kind of think about it some and see how that's so different, and then be with those same things at those two different places in your body at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Such a powerful practice. Now you have to get really in your body to do it,
Right?
which takes a little bit of like maybe some movement and some breathing or something, but to really get there is really powerful practice.
Mm-hmm.
Hold any opposites, like the difference between routine and ritual, to hold both those things at the same time, that's really powerful practice. To feel divinely free. Have you ever felt like, all of you, everybody listening can think of a time that they felt like every cell in their body felt radically expansive and free, uncontainable, so free. And then to actually cultivate that feeling, and then go, well, what's the opposite of that? And then feel how that is a contractive nature, like right there with it, because those aren't two different things. At least not as an in the body experience. Those are two sides of the same coin. And so to go to, for example, to feel these two different body parts, or to feel that are really different, or to feel radically free, and the opposite of that, which is really quite painful, usually for most people. Some people it's not. But to be with those things and practice being with those things at the same time, and to do that a little bit every day, That's so powerful.
Very powerful.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is like such a powerful practice. And so
Mm-hmm.
simple. Anybody can do that.
Yeah.
You
Anybody can
know,
do that. Yeah.
anybody can do it. Now, some
Yeah.
people needed to be guided at first, the first few times, which takes a good, somebody that has experience, but um, you might not understand the power of it at first until somebody's walked you, gotten you so far into your body that you're like, oh my God, that was crazy,
Yeah.
But once you've felt it a few times, you can, if you're dedicated, at least you can practice it.
You can.
I
There's
mean,
there's a lot of reasons that people can't, and that's where I think the trauma work and the
that's
deepening
right.
of presence really helps, and doing movement and exercise. Like the way that I see it, what you're saying is really putting awareness, and I do this as well with my people and with myself, putting awareness, bringing awareness to these places. But there's a lot of places where people are numb and people find numbness or they can't feel anything, which to me is a sign that our energy is, this is how one of my main mentors taught me, is that our energy can be out in an experience, right? It could be out, who knows? It could be your great grandma's experience. It could be a past life. You don't need to even know what it is. Although eventually stuff kind of reveals itself to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Right. But
I
there,
agree. That's
if,
me. I mean,
right.
that's me. I can't feel like, I mean, stuff comes up for me and I'm like, like almost 30 years of practice, like in the body. I
Track
can
it.
kind of sometimes sense it's there, but I'm like, oh my God, I just have pain. Like, what is it? I don't even know.
Mm, yeah.
And we were just trained to be disassociated from an early age. At least I was. So people, that is me. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
all of us in a sense.
Well,
It's the
yeah, yeah,
conditioning.
finding those areas. But what I'm saying is that if you guys are listening and you try this and you find that, you know, the invitation is actually how I like to work with people if they feel like they're frozen or stuck or can't get anything, is really start with grounding. Like,
Mhm.
because it creates a foundation of safety so
Mhm.
that you can feel supported, because you might not feel safe to go into those areas. So that could come up. and
Huge.
and breath, and of course you can work with Joe, you can reach out to me, you can contact us, and we'll be sharing Joe's information here in a minute, and his site and stuff, so that you can get personalized support, so people that have done the work can hold space for you.
Absolutely. Like when certain people come and you can tell they have a lot of trauma, I'll actually have them not work in the torso.
Mm.
Have them like stay out of their torso
I
because
send them to a trauma therapist and then come back
yeah,
to me in 2 years.
yeah, exactly. There's something like that. Yeah. Cause it's just too much to just like go right into the body. So
It could be
I'm glad you brought that up because that needs to be mentioned in this context, that not everybody can just go straight into the body, which is what I teach in my classes.
right,
I teach
but
people
there's
right away,
also,
get right in the body. And it's too much for some people.
yeah, there's lots of movement happening in asana class, where you're moving the chi and you're waking up the body, you're waking, so it is a container, and then you're in the group field, which helps accentuate it, and because the field is expanding, so you're in the presence of a conscious field. So it's wonderful. I love those
Yeah.
classes.
Sometimes people can still get in their hands and their feet and soften their face and not get into like the deeper tissues again of the, from the neck to the pelvis. They can stay out of that area, but they can start getting into their body by on these really superficial levels, which is super powerful as well. They're just not ready to feel like their heart area or their pelvis area. So anyway,
Right, or sensations on the skin or your clothes on your back or your hair or the breeze. Yeah.
totally. So I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, great. Embodiment work, integration work, weaving awareness of your field, so helpful. I would love it if you wanted to share a practice with the community, a little meditation and awareness, and we can just do it right now.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
this is that you might be tempted to say I'm done because you don't, you know, maybe you're driving or something like that, and you can do this still while you're driving. It's safe, or you could wait till a little bit later so you could be a little more present with it. But I do encourage you to try this. It's super simple, and you've done stuff like this before. But I just want you to turn something it's really mundane, like for example, the breath, into something that is really sacred. So take a moment and just feel your breath. And as you feel your breath, I like to say frame your breath. So this practice is going to have a beginning and it's going to have an end. And we're going to fill this frame, like a picture frame in an art gallery or something. We're going to fill this frame with something really special. It's really quite mundane. It's the breath, but we're going to fill this time period, and we're going to make artistry with our breath. So as you bring your attention to your breath, first of all, recognize that the breath is mundane. It happens on its own. We do it about 23,000 times a day we breathe. But see if you can bring your whole self to the breath in a way that you even give a sense of honor, appreciation. Dare I say, I think on this one I can say worship of the breath. And when the breath comes in, just honor it like a guest coming into your home. The Dalai Lama. It'd be really cool if the Dalai Lama came to my home, like, or just Mother Nature, invited in. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming. And then the way out, wonderful to have you. Thanks so much for being here. Just do that a few times. Because remember, the activity is not what's sacred. It's how you bring yourself to it. Turn this next breath into a ritual. Let Mother Nature come in and bless you on the inhale, and on the way out, thank you so much for thank you so much for being here, And then bring your hands in front of your heart. People have been doing this gesture, this mudra for thousands of years. It's called Anjali Mudra. And make it a ritual. Not a routine, but a ritual. At the same time, don't diss the routine. Routine's great. I love routine. I can't always do ritual. Whatever's a mean to an end, that's fine. We'll make this moment right now ritual. And then release your hands. And then come back to what you're doing. Awesome.
Thank you. That was sweet. I have to say something. And then I want to let everyone know. I'd love for you to let everyone know how they can follow up with you. So this is so important that we integrate the sacred, because life is sacred. It's a frequency to live from and honoring. And again, there's a lot of people that aren't in religion anymore. But it doesn't mean that we can't experience the sanctity and the spirit of life and the spirit of things. And you can create your own ritual. I learned this from one of my native elders, who's a Dakota traditional elder. We did traditional ceremonies. But also he appreciated when somebody would have an idea for a spontaneous ritual for healing. And we would integrate sound healing and laws of vibration and light into what we're doing. And so I like to see us awaken. And on Awaken Life Radio, we talk about awakening the intuition and cultivating flow and divine service and healing. But none of that is possible if we are not in communion with the sacred. Yeah. So thank you for this reminder and these teachings today. It's been really wonderful.
Yeah. If you're really present, like if it's really a ritual and you're really present in it, like insight will come. It won't even be from your past possibly, but you'll have insight that you've never had before.
That's right.
So Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah. And those practices of of weaving together the different parts of yourself help you to be present so that you can practice the rituals with your whole heart. It's so good. Good job. Thank you so much. So good. Thank you. How can our people follow up with you? Mm-hmm.
So, I just I teach a lot of yoga. I teach really basic 200-hour teacher trainings.
Mm-hmm.
I teach 300-hour teacher trainings. I do continuing education. I work with people privately. I mentor people, and mostly at the Asheville Yoga Center, which actually you mentioned Dr. Vasant Lad.
Yes.
He just recently, an organization called Are Prana purchased the place that I teach, and they're run by a board, and Dr. Vasant Lad is head of that board. So the yoga center that I teach at and the Ayurvedic Institute, Dr. Lad's school, it's now one location, one place, one
so good
idea. We even have we're even working on a common mission statement, which is which we think right now is going to be elevating consciousness. So there's a lot of cool things going on in my world, and there's a lot of cool things going on where I live, and there's a lot of cool things happening all over the place. Even though there's a lot of crazy, weird stuff happening, there's also some really cool stuff happening. And can we hold those both at the same time?
That's right. That's right. So if you guys want to follow up, you can go to Joe Taft Yoga, Joe Taft, Taft yoga.com. And I will post his site in the show notes as well. Thank you so much.
Ronnie, thank you so much for having me. It's always so fun to talk with you. So now we got to do it for other people to hear, because this is like a regular conversation in a sense,
I know.
So you really bring that. You really bring that. So thank you.
Thank you. If you enjoyed listening to today's episode, and I sure hope you did, you can listen to Awaken Life Radio wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. To join the conversation, hop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Awakened Life Tribe. You can join us there and share any thoughts, feelings, insights, or questions that you have from listening to Awaken Life Radio, and we can interact and connect more. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Namaste.